And we are live. Welcome to a very special Christmas Day edition of NBA Live Before Lock. I am Josh Engleman. This is Greg Ehrenberg. And we're going to break this bad boy down for the next hour. Lots of questions for this slate. It's obviously like the most fun-ish NBA slate that we get each year. Tons of question marks hanging out there. A truly broken price tag on FanDuel. Lots more to talk about. And it doesn't end right here. NFL Live Before Lock coming up next at noon. Whether it's basketball or football, you get it all today. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live, and follow us both on Twitter. Happy holidays, Greg. I'm being more specific with those Christmas wishes for you.
You know, it's funny because I was texting my cousins a little bit before this because I did always celebrate Christmas growing up. And my oldest cousin, because my parents and my aunt and uncle, like they all told us at the same time that Santa isn't real, which means that my oldest cousin didn't find out till he was like 15 years old and just didn't know. But every year he insisted that he heard Santa the night before. So we're just kind of texting and joking about that. That's
good. I love it. Santa was good this year. Nice guy. Very happy. Apparently I was good.
Potentially anti-Semitic. You didn't bring parents to the Jewish kids, so something a little suspicious about that. But
hey, I saw on the Santa map he was flying over top of Israel at one point in time. I don't know how well that went, but it happened. It happened. Yeah, it might not have gone well. Also, we should probably talk about how Santa is, in fact, the man and very real, on the off chance that people are watching this show in front of their family. Sometimes you forget.
Or for the people who are just 35 years old that haven't figured it out yet.
Also true. They're honestly, based on the things that I've ever read in this chat, I bet there's a few. There's probably a couple in here.
Also, I mean, AH here, Greg still lives at home for sure, as opposed to living outside. You either live at home or outside.
I live at home.
Yeah, everybody. You either. I guess if you could consider your car a home, but you're either at a car, at home, or outside. Those are the options.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of living at home. It's made my life way better. Way better.
The new disc. Like, wait. You live indoors? What is this?
Yeah. Who needs a roof these days? I always say. Well, you're probably going to be able to buy a new roof if you're rostering Evan Mobley today on FanDuel and he plays, because FanDuel asleep at the wheel for this one. Not surprised. If he plays today, he's back faster than we expected him to be back. Evan Mobley is the flat min on FanDuel today, currently projected in our data for 99% ownership. Now, it will not be 99%. It will be the highest number of anybody on the FanDuel slate by a mile. How do you see any specific angle to this? Assuming he's in, obviously. It doesn't really matter if he's out.
So first, we have to assume as of right now that he's going to play under the premise of the question. Because if he's out, then it doesn't even matter. But I have him in all my lineups on FanDuel. I'm playing more on FanDuel than I am on DraftKings today, which was kind of by force, just because I had a bunch of tickets to the FanDuel contest today that I've accumulated over the last few weeks. And then with Evan Mobley being questionable, it's kind of going to be a pain in the ass to play a bunch of lineups on both sites. So as a result of playing a little bit more on FanDuel, I go and build lineups and looks like, all right, Evan Mobley's min price. We haven't projected for limited minutes. It sells him at 31 fantasy points. So this is a Christmas Day slate that has some value, but it's not like an 11-game slate that has a Tyler Kolek or Moussa Diabate like the other day or anything like that. So there was nothing I could do to get Evan Mobley in any number other than 100% of lineups.
Yeah, you made the good point about the slate size. If this wasn't just 5 games, then, you could start to have a realistic conversation about what does it look like? He's hurt. What if he just gets hurt immediately again? It's a 5-game slate. You're just never, ever, ever going to find a piece of value that is better than this if he's able to play. Even if we have him in for 26 and a half minutes right now. If we get word in a half hour that he's playing, but the limit is 20, he's still going to be 60-something% owned on FanDuel and an awesome play from a value perspective. The fact that he has the power forward center eligibility is saving everything here. I wanted to start with that Evan Mobley piece on the FanDuel end just because it is the most outlier of all outlier things. We don't have a ton of other like truly weird stuff right now. Tim Hardaway Jr., Peyton Watson, and Joval are the highest 3 owned guys on DraftKings. So I guess we do still have some weird on that side too. $3,400 Joval on a Christmas slate being the third most owned dude we have right now is definitely a thing. This is not going to be about anybody in particular, but I know this is something that you pay attention to a lot for this kind of stuff. How do you approach a Christmas slate differently than a normal slate? Because we've got 2 hours between every single game. Late swap is a completely different game today. There's value to having the late game in your lineups and, maybe offloading it throughout the night.
Yeah, so you hit the nail on the head there, and there's a couple of things that I think are really relevant to talk about here. First off is usually for Christmas Day slates, everybody plays, just because these are games that are very, very, I could be wrong on this, but I assume that outside of opening day, these are the most watched regular season games the NBA has of the entire season. I don't know that for sure. I'm just making an educated guess. So these are
as an individual day, 100%. Like obviously there's going to be individual games if like 2 teams that are really good are playing at a certain time, but as a day, it has to be this.
So typically, because these games are so publicized, everybody plays. You don't get very many names on the injury report. And even when guys are on the injury report, I tend to assume they're going to play as opposed to sit on a day like today. But we do have a lot of guys on the injury report. The one that I'm very confident plays is Luka. He's questionable until we've gotten word that he is expected to play. So of all the guys who are questionable, I feel best about him. Then Şengün is questionable. Mobley is questionable, which I hope he plays just because it's a free square for FanDuel purposes. But the reason he's min priced on FanDuel's pricing algorithm fucks this up a decent amount. For whatever reason, when players are out for an extended period of time, they just get lowered to min price. And then when they come back, the price goes back up to normalish levels. But because Evan Mobley was not expected back still for another couple weeks or so, him being upgraded to questionable for today, it means that his price is still at the minimum. I don't actually know if Mobley is going to be in or out, but we're going to find out sometime over the course of probably the next 20 minutes or so, to be honest, because the game is the first locking game on the slate. So you got Şengün is questionable, Mobley is questionable, PJ Washington is questionable, Jaden McDaniels is questionable. You've also got Dorian Finney-Smith and Jackson Hayes questionable. Matters a little bit for a smaller slate for today. Now, how this is relevant to the question you asked me is this is a day with the games being really spread out where you're going to want to be late swapping before the start of each game, especially using our new feature in the late swap tool where it now incorporates the live fantasy projections for all of the players. So getting those swaps in right before games start, that is going to be a really good way to make sure your lineups are being optimized as the day goes. And then you had mentioned that particularly on DraftKings, we have some guys who are kind of odd chalk options because Evan Mobley isn't min price there. But here's the thing I really love about it for DraftKings. They're all in the last locking game of the entire slate. So you don't have to go into the slate starting with 70% of Jonas Valanciunas and finishing with 70% of Jonas Valanciunas. But I really like that the lineups I built, what was it, my 4 most roster players on DraftKings? More than that. So here are my most roster players on DraftKings. Valanciunas, Hardaway, Peyton Watson, Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray. 5 most roster players, all from the Denver Nuggets coming out of the Sims. That doesn't have to be the final case. If I do have these guys, I'm totally cool with it based on their points per dollar projections. But if better value opens up because Şengün gets ruled out or, Luka's unexpectedly ruled out or something like that, cool. I'm going to have all the flexibility in the world to swap out of this. So I know a lot of people are going to be like, I don't want all this exposure to Denver. Leave it for now. Change it later.
Yeah, completely agree. It makes it very easy. If your lineups are already off to a good start, then they're probably going to keep your Tim Hardaways, your Peyton Watsons, your Joe Vals. If you've got a lineup that has some contrarian guys that have already done well, it's probably going to keep these chalky guys. But if you've got a lineup where somebody isn't performing as well as you would have expected, it's kind of chalky, then it's probably going to turn a Tim Hardaway into somebody that's 10% owned. So you give yourself a chance to jump back up because you're competing with all those lineups. Having it set up, did you do anything to do that, or was that just a natural occurrence? Did you boost any late games?
Didn't. So the funny thing is I would have if this isn't what the exposure just already ended up being
Sure.
in the Sims. But yeah, you don't touch anything and you just get to a shit ton of Denver in the Sims. I'm sure that's something that is going to be coming up in the chat as people are like, I don't want all of this Denver. Don't do anything to change. If this was the first game on the slate, I'd be like, this is problematic. No issue at all for the last game on the slate when we're going to be late swapping a bunch today.
Couldn't agree more. It's wild to see a 13.3 minute Joval be the third most owned guy on today's slate. That's like 13 minutes is about as low as it'll get to be a chalk play. It's hard to go much lower than that and have that guy still show up as an interesting option for what we have going on. Let's take a look at the top end of Christmas, because I think that's just more interesting on a day where typically everybody's going to be playing in some way. Nikola Jokic at 12.5. We're pretty used to that. 12.1 for Luka. Keep an eye on it. Unowned at this moment. SGA at 10.5. You have to assume that Oklahoma City is at least a little salty about this matchup heading into it. Wemby, total wild card for today. 10.2. Playing some sort of amount of minutes that are probably less than full. However many they are, I don't know. You've got Şengün, AD, Donovan Mitchell, LeBron, Anthony Edwards, all in the 9Ks. Do you have a preferred spend-up option right now?
Yes, and it is going to, I was going to say it's different depending on the site, but actually isn't. It's Nikola Jokic on both sites. He's the one I get the most exposure to. So over on FanDuel, Evan Mobley is the power forward and center eligibility. So I presume that most of those lineups are going to have Evan Mobley at the power forward spot. It makes it really easy to spend up for a bunch of guys, assuming Mobley's in. I'm really curious to see what happens to some of these lineups if Mobley is out, because him being in makes it pretty easy to get up to Jokic. I wouldn't be surprised if my Jokic ownership nosedives if Mobley is ruled out, because it would just be so much more difficult to pay up for him in that kind of scenario. On DraftKings, where we don't have a broken price tag on Evan Mobley, I still get to Nikola Jokic more than any of the other pay up options on the slate. And that is because just the flexibility is a little bit easier over on DraftKings, who roster multiple centers. And then also Jokic projecting for like 10 more fantasy points than everybody else on the slate. That'll do it when it's not all that difficult to spend up. Because the other thing, too, is the guy who's closest in projection to Jokic is Luka. And that's still close to a 10 fantasy point gap. But the price tag is about the same between the two of them. So then if you're trying to figure out, like, all right, well, if there's this big of a price of a projection gap between Luka and Jokic, the other option would be, all right, so paying down to a different pay up option is a little bit cheaper than Jokic, but then you're looking at like a 15 fantasy point gap between Jokic and SGA, and then it gets to a 20 fantasy point gap if you're looking at the next group of players. So it's just the projection gap is so massive between Jokic and everybody else that as long as you could afford him, he's just going to show up in lineups.
Yep. And as we sort of outlined earlier, doesn't suck to have a ton of Jokic at lock, and then you figure out ways, if you need to back out of that as you get to every other game, whether that's like, oh shit, now I guess this Jokic is about to become Anthony Davis and somebody else later, or whatever that path ends up being. I do find the ownership for these highly projected guys to be really interesting. Jokic right around 20, SGA right around 20, AD a little bit more popular. He's the only one up here with an MPE, which is saving him. Ant at 20. Brunson at 20, Curry basically at 20, Jamal Murray basically at 20, Donovan Mitchell probably a little bit closer to 20 if Evan Mobley gets ruled out in the next 15 minutes. He gets a little bit of a rate bump, starts to look a little bit better. That's a very blurry top end on a day where you typically are going to like feel better about getting to the best players on a Christmas, they want to go a little bit harder on Christmas Day in a national TV game like this. I have a hard time looking at that list and thinking like, I like that one more than the others. Like, it's easy to say it for Jokic because he's kind of like a different dude on a different tier. After that, if you've got to lean on SGA, AD, Ant, Brunson, Curry, Mitch, good for you. I don't have it.
Mobley available to play. So there we have it. So also want to remind you guys, because a lot of people are like, but Evan Mobley, calf injury, he's not going to play full minutes. But we have him projected to not play full minutes, and that still has him with a projection of a little bit over 30 fantasy points in limited minutes.
Yeah, like we should probably address this as well. Evan Mobley's 8,600 on DraftKings. You just don't play him
Yeah.
there at all. On FanDuel, where he is 3,500 and the flat minimum, you play him there the exact opposite way. Assume he's in everything, and if he's not, it's like 98% probably. But very different things. So if you guys are hearing us talk about Evan Mobley, remember the context here. DraftKings, useless. FanDuel, you kind of just have to have it.
Yeah, useful on FanDuel is the way that he could best be described over there. But yeah, I mean, there's no way for me to get away from Evan Mobley. And even from a projection standpoint, considering that, let's see, what do we have him in our projections as a points per dollar? We have him on FanDuel projected for 1.19 fantasy points per minute. So unless you're projecting Mobley for under, say, 15 minutes, he's going to project as we did do a projection update. It lowered Mobley a little bit. So we have him in for 24 minutes and 29 fantasy points now. That still is going to get him in every single lineup.
Here's the reference point you were looking for. On FanDuel, the second best value play on the slate is Peyton Watson. He's 5K. Projected for about 27 fantasy points. He's 5.35 fantasy points per $1,000. Evan Mobley's at 8.3. He's a full 3 points per $1,000 better than anybody else on the slate. I don't think I've ever seen a value gap like that, because Peyton Watson's like not even that good of a value to be the second best value option. And then you get Evan Mobley at like a completely different universe of a price. Let's hit Sleepyhead super chat here. It's exciting to see. I feel like a sleepyhead. I've got crazy bedhead going on right now. I'm trying to stay back a little bit further so that no one can see it. Sleepyhead says, I took down last night, or the late night 25K NBA zone the other night. Also got tied for second. Wanted to thank you guys for continued efforts. Happy holidays. Happy holidays to you, my man. I bet you weren't that sleepy that next morning.
Yeah, shout out Sleepyhead. He wasn't the only one either. Saw some other people in chat say they just won GPPs as well. Yeah, here's one. John C. Billups says that he took down the night slate the other day for 30K. So good stuff. Good stuff from chat. And also, if you guys, I've got the ticker going on the bottom of the screen, but also keep in mind, if you want a chance or give yourself the best chance to win a GPP, like some of the guys in chat, you can sign up for any of our stochastic packages and get 20% off with the promo code GIFT. Any package you want to sign up for, link to sign up is down below in the YouTube description box. Just enter that promo code GIFT at checkout and you get yourself 20% off.
John C. says, talk about Kolek. That'll be pretty easy. I wouldn't play him.
Yeah. Brunson's back.
Yeah. Not an interesting guy for today. Is there a game that you have your eye on more than others? And not necessarily just from a like, oh, this is the latest game on the slate, so it's better perspective. Like, do you have a spot that you think is better today?
Assuming you mean from a DFS perspective, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so FanDuel and DraftKings are going to be wildly different on FanDuel. Just you've got Evan Mobley, you've got an underpriced OG Anunoby, so it's really going to be the first game on FanDuel. For DraftKings, it's going to be the Rockets-Lakers game for me. There's a wide range of outcomes of what ends up happening with Luka in terms of does he play, does he not play? It seems like he's going to play, but you never know. And then also on the other side of the game, Şengün is questionable. So let's say Şengün is of all of the prominent players who are questionable, Şengün is the one who I think is most likely to end up sitting. And in the event he doesn't play, then all of a sudden you're getting to Steven Adams as a really good value option. Also, then you start figuring out like, all right, what Dorian Finney-Smith, that we wouldn't play him in DFS, but he's questionable if he plays. Like, how does that impact some of the backup minutes for some of the other Rockets guys? So in terms of just game that I have the most interest in right now, it's going to be the Houston Lakers game for that reason.
Did you see Dorian Finney-Smith's price and position on DraftKings? Don't look.
I did not look at his price or position.
Flat 3K.
Okay.
Center only.
All right. Interesting. So he's obviously going to be a different scenario than Evan Mobley in terms of, so if people are like, well, is this a free square in the same way? Like, is he the DraftKings equivalent of Evan Mobley? No, because you've not seen a single game all year out of Dorian Finney-Smith. He could be somebody who plays like 10 minutes if he's in, and he's also clearly not the fantasy producer that Mobley is. So I very highly doubt that I play Dorian Finney-Smith in DFS, but it does create interesting thoughts if you have a scenario where Şengün is out and Finney-Smith is in, because whether you get 10 or 15 minutes out of Finney-Smith, that could actually matter for some of the Houston value then.
Yeah, you start comparing it to like Joval, for instance, who's, cheap salary, center only, low 3K. Now, Joval, obviously a completely different per minute player than Dorian Finney-Smith. But like in theory, Dorian Finney-Smith can play 20 minutes today. Like I don't necessarily expect that, but we have no idea how limited he is for anything that he's going to be doing. Yeah, I read that before and laughed to myself and almost didn't get to what I wanted to say here. Dorian Finney-Smith will be interesting if Şengün gets ruled out. He could also just barely play and be awful and useless. But flat 3K with no Şengün, it starts to become like that could be an interesting wild card for Christmas.
Yeah. So in terms of what is most interesting to me, it's gonna be that game, more so on the Houston side than the Lakers side. But I guess that's subject to change if we get different news that comes out about Luka as the day goes on.
There's no ownership coming to this game, at least on the DraftKings side. Reed Shepherd's 20. Jabari Smith is 10. Everybody else is below that. Now, Houston's getting a little busy. Everybody's starting to get back now. It's pretty much like if Dorian Finney-Smith plays and Şengün plays, the only guy that's out is Fred VanVleet, who, by the way, they need to trade him in the next 2 months, but we could have that conversation at a later show. There's zero ownership going to the Lakers. Do you want the Lakers if Luka's in?
So if Luka is in, here is one thing that would stand out to me about the Lakers. I prefer getting to Jokic, but Luka is 3% owned? Is that what he was on our last update? Is that the number?
Correct.
Luka?
Correct.
Criminally crazy low ownership for Luka. Like there has to be a number where it's like he's low owned enough to where I want to take shots on him. 3% is that number. It doesn't mean that I want to play more of him than Jokic or anything like that, but like 10% of Luka on DraftKings be way overweight to the field on him. I think that Luka as a contrarian option is pretty interesting on a slate that it's viable to pay up for some guys, and you've got the second best fantasy producer on the slate is essentially unowned.
I have an angle too, and I don't, not that I disagree with anything that you just said about Luka, because it's Luka. $6,700 DeAndre Ayton at 1.2% ownership today on a 5-game Christmas slate. Like realistically, he's going to play 30 minutes. Like he's just a starter. He's the dude that plays center. If Şengün's out, this starts to look a little bit better for him, and he's not going to get any sort of ownership impact. But when you have a starting center that's in and around a fantasy point per minute, a guy who's not losing his job for anybody else that's just going to be out there, I think 1% ownership to DeAndre Ayton is just crazy for what this slate is. There's no reason he can't just be a great center play in the mid-6s. If he had any sort of like negative playing time thing, I could be worried, but like it's not like Jackson Hayes is going to play 26 minutes and close over him today. For him to be 1%, that just seems too low.
Yeah, and kind of the same with Luka. It's not, these are not the best plays on the slate at their respective positions or price points. It's just these guys are completely unowned in a way that's kind of crazy.
Yeah, for a tiny slate. And even still for this one, like, you know, you can, if you go to too much Ayton or Luka, you can back yourself back out of it and you're the first time you swap if you want to. Realistic, like the only thing that matters is how much are you locking down in the Cleveland Knicks game? Because otherwise, everything else is just subject to change as more and more news comes in. Because realistically, like we're not going to get any other news in the next 25 minutes.
Yeah, we got the most important news, especially for FanDuel. That's Evan Mobley is going to be in. Everything else we're not going to get until the slate already commences, and then we'll be doing some late swaps using the late swap tool. We do have a couple questions from Discord here too, Josh. Unless you have any other thoughts on the Lakers.
No, let's do it.
All right, JEW. Wishing us a happy holidays, you too, JEW. And then for he wants to know the DK single entry must plays and then wants to know some low-owned pivots, and then favorite players to be over under too. Okay, so let's take this in parts. So the first part here is who are the absolute must plays for a single entry today on DraftKings. There
I don't think there
like
is one.
crazy can't miss value options, but just because of when some of these guys' games start, I'm going to say Jokic, Valanciunas, and Tim Hardaway going into the slate.
I would leave Joe Val out of that just because of the price and position. I don't mind the Jokic piece. Tim Hardaway for me, 100%. Guard forward eligibility, 4K, the highest owned guy on the slate, and the late game. Like, that's a piece where you want to have it now, and you can do whatever you need to as you move on. I think Peyton Watson is sort of the same as Tim Hardaway. I'd be fine with having as much as I can of those guys just because they're going to be so flexible. I'm not sure I care really about anybody else, but if it's Jokic, that's cool with me too. One, he's awesome. Two, it's enough salary that like if I'm moving stuff around throughout the day, I'm going to get to anything I want after that because he's just opening up such a portion of my entire salary cap. But if it's anything, it's probably these guys coming from Denver.
Yeah. But there's nothing, there's no like the Tyler Kolek or the Diabate play from the other day. We don't have anybody to that extent. And then he also wants to know who are some low-owned pivot plays that we like. I think we've touched on that a little bit, but I mean, Luka is 1%, 3% owned. Josh touched on Ayton being 1% owned. If you're looking for other guys who are maybe a little bit more reasonable in terms of being guys who you want to get to, but are also not like 1 to 3% owned. A couple of other guys too show up in lineups. People are going to be like, oh, revenge narrative. It's not really because of this. He's just favorably priced on DraftKings, but Clay is only $3,900 and reasonably owned at 17%. So I'm overweight to Clay as a lower owned option.
Here are all of the guys on today's slate less than 10% owned with a 20% or higher boom score. So guys that look good, but might not have the best salary to relate into ownership. PJ Washington, KD, Donovan Mitchell, Amen Thompson, Castle, Şengün, Luka, Julius Randle. And those are all sort of the names where it's just like, yeah, those guys aren't all that low owned, but every single one of them is going to be out there a ton. And there's no reason any one of them can't be like real legit. And there's no fake names on that list at all. Those are all real dudes, depending on how I actually feel about them. And a couple Q tags that will open something up a bit later. I don't want to wait any longer than it just took me to say all of that shit to pull this one up. Brian Paraschetti, appreciate you boys helping me take down the fadeaway Tuesday night. Merry Christmas to you and your families. Big ol' super chat. Merry Christmas to you, Brian, and congrats on the fadeaway Tuesday night. Yeah, it's always fun.
That's what was I'm trying to remember the size of the slate on Tuesday. Was that 100K to first on the Tuesday?
That was the 11 gamer.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. Yeah, because that was the really big one. So yeah, that would be a big hit then. So yeah, shout out, man. Absolutely love to see it.
And then Steve with another super chat, which will be less fun for me to read right now because it hits home. Happy holidays. Lost my mom on November 2nd. I promised her before she passed I would stop boozing and gambling after this year. So I hope to end on a bang. I've watched you guys for years and you're truly the best in the biz. God bless. I'm very sorry to hear about your mom. That we could lead off with that one. Best of luck on the booze and the gambling. Definitely the booze. This is an interesting show for me to be pumped about you stopping the gambling. But if that's going to be good for you, I hope that you can do that. But happy holidays to you, man. I know how you feel right now.
Yeah. Happy New Year. Happy holidays. And starting next week, you'll be done with DFS. And there's no thing where you could be like, well, look, per the actual legal rules that are put in place, DFS is a game of skill, not gambling.
Yes.
But
yes, you can work your way into that one if you need to, Steve. And maybe would she be mad at you if you were a good gambler? Is the problem that it wasn't going great? Because if that's the case, we could work on it. Sign up at Tails in the next 6 days at least.
Yeah, but yeah, Steve, very, very, very sorry for your loss. Happy
Yeah,
holidays, happy New Year, and I hope you're doing okay.
absolutely. Yeah, that one hits home for me. Ooh, what do we got here? Starting lineup. Cavs will start Garland, Mitchell, Merrill, Wade, and Allen.
Yeah, so Mobley off the bench. It's not massively surprising. We already had him projected for limited minutes. This will just help to minimize his minutes a little bit.
I'm going to say this out loud. Don't take this too strongly. It is 1% more scary now that he's not starting. It's not going to affect anything on the FanDuel side, but you do feel better in those scenarios if he's just out on the floor when the game tips off. But it's not going to change anything. You're never playing him on DraftKings, and you're definitely playing him on FanDuel.
Yeah, we'll see when the projections update if there's anything way different than expected. But I mean, at worst, we're gonna have Mobley projected for, I don't know, maybe like at worst 24 fantasy points or something like that.
Yeah. Taking a look at some of the highest leverage options. We don't have anybody too crazy. Breaking free from the pack, Anthony Edwards and Ryan Nembhard are the only guys more or higher than 5%. From the negative perspective, got quite a few. Tim Hardaway Jr., that is typically what happens for heavily owned people. Their optimals are slightly lower. You don't need an optimal lineup in DraftKings, so you can deal with that gap being there. When you see the negative leverage on someone that's not as owned, that tends to matter to me a little bit more. Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green, Joe Val. Again, that one, the Joe Val one doesn't matter. It's really Butler and Draymond that are a little bit more on the negative leverage end. On a day like today, probably not going to change anything up. Let me hit Morgan's super chat as well. He said, my condolences, Steve. My family wasn't stoked about gambling either until I started winning. Winning cures all ills. Easier said than done. We can't all just win $1 million over the last, or $1 million plus over the last 6 months.
You're shortchanging him because he won, I believe it was 2 millies over the course of like 2 weeks. One was a baseball and a football one for Morgan.
Yeah, I'm not going to give him too much credit. It was 800 and something thousand on the baseball side. So it wasn't good enough to get a full $1 million there.
You're forgetting that he also came in like 4th and 9th in that tournament, though.
I am indeed. Pierre, Merry Christmas. Favorite player at each position on FanDuel. Greg, I'm going to throw that to you, but I will tag in with answers.
Sure. So over on FanDuel, I do have to rerun everything once projections update. Now that we got the Cavs starting lineup and Mobley coming off the bench, I assume I'm still going to have 100. I had 100% of Mobley before. Maybe I have like 95% of him now. But either way, I'm going to have a ton of him, and he's going to be my answer once we get to power forward. But at point guard for me, there is a ton of ownership going to Jamal Murray. He's the one I have the most exposure to. But in the interest of finding somebody who's a little bit lower owned that I also have a good amount of at a comparable price point, I think Steph Curry is a pretty good pivot off of Jamal Murray.
Yeah, Murray is obviously the guy pulling the most love on the FanDuel side. I do like the Steph shout. Interesting dynamic there in the 9Ks between Steph and Brunson, because they are essentially the exact same play with regards to ownership, optimal rate, boom, whatever. Interesting coin flip there. But obviously, if you take Brunson, you're locking that bad boy in right out of the gate.
Yeah. Yep. Jamal Murray, if it's just like who do I have the most exposure to, Murray, but trying to find some lower owned guys, some overweight to relative to ownership. There's some other directions to go to. At shooting guard for me on FanDuel, that one's going to be Tim Hardaway Jr. at 4,200.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty natural answer there. A little surprised to see that pretty sizable chunk of positive leverage on Mikal Bridges, especially at 7,200. Wouldn't have expected that, but yeah, Hardaway is just the easiest fit there.
Yeah, and then at small forward for me, that is going to be OG Anunoby. Somebody brought this up in chat, or Discord chat, that is, and tagged me in it. They had said, whereas a Kraken Tiles is getting a ton of OG in the Sims, he noted that I said that he's underpriced on FanDuel. And then he said that even making 3 uniques, he still gets to a ton of OG Anunoby. There's a certain point, because he's asking like what kind of cap he should put on Anunoby. Like if you just don't want him to be in half your lineups, you could cap him. But there's also something to be said for if you run the Sims and you get an individual player shows up in a bunch of lineups, You do like a negative ROI boost to him. You set on uniques and he still shows up in a bunch of lineups. At a certain point, it's just, this is a guy who our data, our tools, our projections really like, and you probably just want to be playing him.
Yep, that's how I feel. Look, I've said this on a lot of shows lately. I'll reiterate it here as quickly as possible. If you run your sims and you have 80% of Tim Hardaway and you look at that and think, well, that's too much. I don't want that much Tim Hardaway. What should I do? Negatively boost him until he gets to a number where it doesn't make you feel gross, because it's not backfilling those. Like, let's say you take out 5 of those Tim Hardaway lineups and his exposure drops tremendously. When you add in those next 5, it's not just picking 5 random dog shit lineups. They're the 5 next best sim ROI lineups that just don't have them. Your lineups are still awesome. You're just going to feel more personally comfortable with not taking a stand that you didn't like when you saw it. Either way, you're ending up with good lineups if you're using our sims.
So at power forward, my answer is Evan Mobley. Also want to update you guys on what we did for his projection. We have him in for 21 minutes, and that gets him for 26 fantasy points. So it just goes to show that we have a very modest, very, very, very modest minutes projection on him, and he still projects outstandingly well. So unless you think that Mobley plays sub 15 minutes, it's hard for him to not show up in a lot of lineups.
Obviously, if it's not Evan Mobley as your power forward, probably looking at, Peyton Watson is right there as well. He's the 4th most owned guy, 5K, easy swap ability throughout the rest of the night. That would probably be my number 2 if we're talking about just like making my life easier.
And then at center for me, especially now that Mobley's in, you've got Nikola Jokic, who's just right there for you at center, 25% owned, pretty easy to pay up for now that Mobley's confirmed in. If you want a lower cost and lower owned guy, Hartenstein, 6K, 10% owned. That's a contrarian option I like on FanDuel.
Close it out with center.
Yeah, that was the one I just, for me, either Jokic or Hartenstein.
Weird. I did not hear you say that direction. I was looking at it here. Jokic is obviously my answer, especially like if you're playing Evan Mobley at power forward, playing Jokic at center becomes incredibly easy when you start offloading those salaries.
Yeah. So there's the breakdown by position that we have for the FanDuel side of things. And we got a ton of questions in Discord. Did we get a bunch of super chats too that just came in?
We've hit all the super chats at this point.
Have we? I thought I saw someone.
No, we have one more that we haven't hit that came in after this. Is an OKC stack viable today? Yes.
Although it does, I do want to clarify here, Anthony. You shouldn't be building your NBA lineups like it's an NFL slate and being like, here's who the stack of the day is, because in general, there's a negative correlation by playing a bunch of guys from the same basketball team, because the scores don't positively correlate. Like in NFL, team scores a touchdown, the quarterback gets a passing touchdown, guy who catches the pass gets a receiving touchdown, they both get yards. In the NBA, for every shot that SGA makes, it's a shot that Jalen Williams doesn't make. It's a time the ball isn't in his hands. So if you've been playing your NBA slates where just like, here are the 4 players I'm playing from the same team, you are making a mistake.
Yeah. Ace of Spades, you ready for this one?
Without looking up on the screen, I'm going to assume this is DK tiers.
Yes, it is. I'm going to pull that up on my phone so I have it in front of my face.
That's what I'm
Jokic is the first answer. I don't have to pull it up yet, but I'm well aware of it being the correct answer.
Yeah, as the only question is Jokic. It's like one of those charts where it's, hey, if this player's in, you pick him. If no, you pick this guy instead. The only question was, is Jokic in tier 1? The answer is yes, he is. Therefore, you're playing him there.
Yep, Jokic, SGA, Wemby, and Şengün. So that is no doubt about it. Mitchell, AD, Reeves, Curry, or LeBron?
Ooh, that is going to be AD for me.
Correct. Edwards, Towns, Murray, Randall, Durant, Amen Thompson.
Ooh. Okay, this is a very interesting one. I don't know that this is necessarily the final answer at the end of the slate. Durant's numbers are crazy with Şengün off the court this year. Like the usage goes way up, the peripheral numbers go way up. So he isn't my answer if Şengün ends up playing, but I don't know that the field, especially for tiers, which I think was a very casual game, is going to be hip to, like late swap and injury and all that. I'm going to go with Durant.
Yeah, I think the answer could realistically be Towns or Ant here. I wouldn't want it to be Towns. I would want to have the opening to get to Durant if I needed to. So I would go Ant to start, but either one of them are going to get me where I need to be.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Fun tier. That's a fun tier.
Fox, Castle, Butler, Flag, J-Dub, Chet, Garland. That is a death tier.
Man, this is a really hard one. I find Cooper Flag to be a guy who's really hard to project right now just because he's very clearly getting better, but not in a way where he shows up every single night and is completely lights out. But I mean, you watch him play the other day where he finished with 33, 9, and 9. It's like on the right day, he's one of the best players in the league right now.
Yeah.
I'm kind of inclined to say Flag.
I mean, this is like every one of these guys are basically the same. They all have like an average of 35 fantasy points as the projection. This is based on nothing. This is just feel. I'm going to go Chet.
Okay. Yeah, there isn't a right or
I feel
wrong
like he's got to get a little salty right now after these losses. Wemby's coming out and basically treating it like Chet doesn't exist. Give me Chet.
Okay. There's no right or wrong answer in that tier. Like Josh said, they all project very, very similarly.
I think the next one's going to be pretty cut and dry, but I don't know. Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, PJ Washington, Naz Reid, Jared Allen, DiVincenzo, Jalen Tyson, Najee Marshall.
That's going to be Bridges for me.
Yeah, it's going to be Bridges for me as well. It's definitely not Jalen Tyson.
No. Or Naz Reid.
No. Rudy Gobert, Jabari Smith, Vassell, Draymond, Pods, DeAndre Hunter, Jake LaRavia.
That is Gobert for me. Although
yeah,
with that said,
Gobert.
Jabari's kind of interesting in the event that Şengün gets ruled out. So I will say, if you pay, there's actually some positive correlation having Jabari and Durant together because they both benefit so much if Şengün doesn't play.
There we go. Ace of Spades. Jacob, best GPP point guard on DraftKings, not named Luka.
Ooh, okay. Let's see. GPP point guard, but it can't be Luka. Reed Shepherd for me.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with Reed Shepherd, that's for sure. MPE 5100, maybe no Şengün. Bruce Brown's a little sneaky today now with no Cam Johnson. He could fall into more minutes than you would ever expect. I'm going to go Bruce Brown for right now.
Okay. We should add that the reason that there is so much, people might be confused, like why Denver? Why Denver as the team that's pulling all this ownership on DraftKings right now? And the answer is primarily because of what Josh just hit on, which is Cam Johnson, bone bruise in his knee. So he's out for today. And I mean, we've seen be the same case for Denver for like 4 or 5 years now. They build teams with zero depth at all. You take one of their core guys out and all of a sudden they have like 6 or 7 actual NBA players on their roster.
Miami Mike gave us a lineup. Curry, Merrill, THJ, OG, Jokic, Watson, Bruce Brown, Quentin Post. I don't have a problem with anything that I see. Quentin Post probably not my favorite dude in the world for today's slate, but he'll be out there at least.
All right. Yeah. I'd rather that lineup have Valanciunas in it for now than Post. And if you can make that work and then figure out a way to, either just ride with that lineup or make a change if need be. Yeah, Quentin Post is the one piece that I don't really love there. I get you'd have a ton of Denver guys if you also ended up having Valanciunas in the lineup, but it just gives you more flexibility to make swaps in the event that, like Şengün gets ruled out or Luka or whatever else happens over the course of the day.
I'm running it through the single lineup sim right now, which you guys can get at stokastic.com using that promo code GIFT if you want 20% off. Link in the description. 37.6% positive ROI. I'm going to lock everybody here except for Post and Merrill to see if that's the actual best combo at shooting guard and utility.
Okay.
It's Nembhard and Merrill as the optimal between these two, which, whatever, same thing for me.
Yeah, it's pretty comparable. Not a massive change.
And, no, basically the same sim ROI as well. Yeah, that one, if I took a third guy out, that gets the Joe Val piece in. So you were walking us towards that one at least.
A bunch of questions we got from Discord here as well.
Yeah, so
we've got JEW. Any interest in Hardy for today? Jaden Hardy, if PJ Washington's out again, played 28 minutes the other day, and could potentially start again.
I mean, I have no, I think between myself and the site on Wednesday night, that was Tuesday night, I don't think either of us had Jaden Hardy projected to even be in the rotation for anything more than 8 minutes that night. If PJ Washington ends up out, a flat 3K Jaden Hardy getting a giant chunk of minutes again is certainly on the table, and he is unrostered at this moment. So that is a path where he can go from nothing to something very quickly. If PJ Washington gets ruled out, there's a decent chance Hardy is the highest sim ROI guy on the slate.
Yeah, I mean, also another reason why you want to be late swapping throughout the day. We also got a question here. Carson says, if I'm not in a position where I could late swap, should I change the sims to give me heavily over on Watson, Joe Val, TH? So, unfortunate answer for you, Carson, for other people. If you cannot late swap, I don't need to play the slate. What if Şengün gets ruled out? Then your lineups are just have bad lineups. Then there's too many guys on the injury report.
Yeah, I don't. On a day like today, I don't know how you could ever play this without late swap. You got to get so lucky, really. It's even harder because you are eschewing piles of value that will inevitably show up, or at least could show up. But yeah, if you are unable to late swap, stacking up your lineup to be late swappable is also not going to help you in any way.
Yeah. I mean, you're just not going to be able to make any changes there. M Grizzly wants to know anybody who I am boosting. So I am doing some negative ROI boosts to the first game on the slate outside of Evan Mobley, for FanDuel purposes, at least outside of Evan Mobley. But in general, just down boosting the early game on the slate. So I'm not too invested in the first one, have a little bit more flexibility.
Yeah. And I think that we've touched on that sort of logic a bunch. I think that makes a ton of sense. We have 1,400 people in the door right now at just shy of noon on Christmas Day. Thank you guys for being here. It's really awesome. If you haven't done it yet, can you guys hit the like button on this video? That's very easy. It's Christmas. You should feel the I want to hit a like button vibes coursing through your veins. If you can do that, guys, that would help us out a ton. Obviously, sign up at Stokastic, download Tails. That would help us out tremendously. Always posting stuff. I've got a Prize Picks card up for today. Prize Picks has been very, very good to me over the past few weeks. Trying to get that out as fast as I can. So when you're following me on Tails, you get it immediately. If you're following me on Twitter, by the time you get it on Twitter, you probably have missed one of the lines that gets posted. They are constantly getting yanked the moment I post this stuff up. And you should also be following Greg on Tails as well. If you're not finding what you want on Tails, I'm not confident you opened your eyes when you open the app, because it's all there. Whatever you're looking for in sports betting, pick'em sites, or DFS.
Absolutely. I've already got a NFL same game parlay up for one of the afternoon games. Might be adding some more. I've got a bunch of NBA bets up and could be adding more NBA bets throughout the day as well if stuff opens up.
And as Greg just mentioned, he has an NFL card out for today. We've got an NFL show coming up after this. Eric and Eric in the afternoon, NFL live before lock, setting you guys up for the 3 NFL games. It's 3 NFL games today, right?
Yep, 3 NFL games also spread out throughout the day, similarly to the NBA slate. So I'm doing some similar stuff with NFL as I am with NBA in terms of, doing some late swaps depending on where my lineups are in the field and whatnot.
We have any more questions in Discord right now?
We do. We've got one from Young Metro Boomin, although we already hit on this. He wants to know best FanDuel plays at each position. We did that. Andre Rules, thoughts on Butler and Draymond for DraftKings today? Let's see. Butler and Draymond.
They both have pretty sizable or had pretty sizable negative leverage scores on the DraftKings side. Now, that doesn't make them not playable by any means, but
let's see. Yeah, I'm like in line-ish with the field on both of them. I do have a guy who I like being overweight to the field too. Same for DraftKings and FanDuel, actually. Steph Curry, he is not pulling the same kind of ownership that Jimmy Butler is. And I think that just makes sense as a leverage option. Play Steph Curry as opposed to Jimmy Butler. There's no reason to think Steph Curry can't be the one who has the big usage in the big scoring ceiling game. So I like Curry as an option to get to from Golden State. I know he asked me, what are my thoughts on Butler and Draymond? If you're playing them, that's fine. There's no issue with that. There's a reason they're 2 of the more popular players on the slate. But yeah, I like the leverage on Curry relative to them.
Yeah, Butler and Draymond just sort of like exist on this slate for me. They just kind of naturally end up in that 20-25 range. I don't have much of a take. Game's late enough that I'm happy to have it, but And tying this back to the NFL for once, these NFL games blow, right? There's like all shit.
It's a lot of backup quarterbacks today. We've got one of the quarterbacks, Josh Johnson for the Commanders, is viable, but you got a lot of Kuhn starting for the Chiefs because the Chiefs are down to their 3rd string quarterback, and then you've got Chris Olakun, is I believe how his name is pronounced. And then you've also got Max Brosmer, who is the 3rd string quarterback for the Vikings, who also sucks playing today. So, yeah, there's going to be some very questionable quarterback play today.
Well, I'm glad I'm not on the NFL show because that sounds like it would get me fired. Ryan with the super chat. Merry Christmas. FanDuel GPP. Thoughts on Amen Thompson and Devin Vassell today? 2 names I haven't really thought about, that's for sure.
So let me look at my exposures for those guys. Amen Thompson he's 11% owned, and I also have him in 11% of lineups right now, but that's a number that's going to go up should Şengün be ruled out. So I could see Thompson being in like 25 to 30% of my lineups if there's no Şengün for today. Devin Vassell, I have in 2% of lineups. He's just not someone I'm going to be getting to.
Yeah, obviously, Amen Thompson is going to look a lot more interesting if we lose Şengün. That will, there's more time to touch the ball in that scenario. Vassell, for me, these, like the ancillary San Antonio pieces are now really difficult, whether that's Harper, Vassell, Barnes, Keldon Johnson, Champagny. Like, they don't give a fuck who is out there as their final 5 dudes. It's like whoever's working in that particular day. They've got a lot of interchangeable pieces. Sometimes that'll work out. Like on a day like today with these guys having low ownership, you can get a lot of wiggle room on some of their minutes if you get it right, because they just have too many pieces to mix and match now. That could be great in a GPP, but you should be ready that like your guy plays 18 minutes on a random day and becomes extra useless because they just got too many dudes right now.
Yeah. Yeah. If Şengün is in, Thompson is still viable, but he's an actual priority for me if Şengün ends up sitting.
Şengün not sitting Christmas Day game. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Christmas to Şengün is probably a little bit different than Christmas to us. Just guessing.
Yes. Yeah. Very, very possible there. And then let's see. We've got Chad Nasty. Single lineup, play Merrill or save the spot for later. I'm more inclined to save the spot for later if you're only playing one lineup.
Yeah.
If you're playing a bunch of lineups and you have some of Sam Merrill, cool. That's not an issue at all. But one lineup, yeah, I wouldn't have Sam Merrill in it.
I got one here. Cornette punt. If people are playing Joval, Cornette should be the swap. Cornette's $5,400, so that's not exactly like a comp to Joval.
The swap would be Steven Adams if Şengün sits.
Yeah. Or if Şengün sits and you want to get extra special weird, Dorian Finney-Smith. But I don't trust that one in any way. He just happens to also be free.
Yeah. All right. Lots of questions came in Discord here. M Grizzly, lots of Sam Merrill questions. Wants to know how much Merrill are we getting to? I think last look I had like 20% of him. I'm doing one final update of everything. But
good to see him back too, by the way.
Yeah, but some not like a crazy amount or anything like that. Another one, JW, how much Merrill is too much Merrill? Boy, people really love Sam Merrill today.
I'm assuming that's our Sims thing if it's all coming from the Discord side too.
Yeah. He's definitely, so here's what's tough, right? He's a good value option, especially now that we're presuming some sort of limited minutes for Evan Mobley. But I don't want to go too crazy. I mentioned before, I'm doing a negative ROI boost to everybody in the first locking game of the slate. I don't want to go crazy with Sam Merrill. Not going to tell you not to play him overall, but I don't want to go crazy with Sam Merrill and then like Şengün gets ruled out later and it's, I can't play any of the Houston guys now.
Anthony Hunt hit us with the super chat. I want to get this in before we're done. Better spend up Luka, SGA, or Ant-Man. I lean SGA right now, but I certainly don't have an issue getting to Luka.
Yeah, I'm going to say Luka relative to his ownership.
Yeah. I'm hoping that SGA shoots like 37 free throws today to really spite San Antonio.
Yeah. Let's see. Next question from Discord. JT Mack, favorite pay up and value option for the 888 on DK. So favorite value option is going to be Tim Hardaway Jr. Favorite pay up, Nikola Jokic.
I am in full agreement with both of those. Whether or not those are the two guys that answer that question by the time it's over might be different, but that's who I'd like to have as I go into lock.
And then Kraken Tiles just says, good luck to all. Looking forward to 10 hours. Like he phrased this like it's the
red zone.
Is like 10 hours of NBA coming up from Kraken Tiles. Yeah, should be a really fun day of basketball.
This is going to be good. I'm excited to sit down, relax, watch some hoops, watch some football to a degree when it's interesting, but I think the hoops will be a little bit more fun for me. Any final thoughts you have here before we get out of here? Remember, guys, this show is over in 2 minutes. We will lock this NBA slate, and right when we get done, NFL Live Before Lock is getting started. So you get 2 straight hours on this Stochastic YouTube channel. Cannot beat that. What a Christmas. You are muted, Greg. Or I'm muted and can't hear you.
All right. That was weird. I'm not even using this computer right now because I'm updating my lineups on my other computer. So I have no clue how that ended up happening. But anyway, just make sure to pay attention to the news, which, standard for NBA, but maybe people think like, oh, nobody's going to sit because it's the holidays. Players get hurt no matter what the day is. It's like hospitals don't close because it's the holidays. It's not like, diseases are going to take off today because it's the holidays. Just not the way things work.
Yeah, I wish my AIDS would just back off today. 1 minute to go, folks. Well, technically like 50-something seconds. If you do not have your lineups in right now, I suggest that you hurry up and upload those bad boys to either DraftKings or FanDuel, Yahoo, or Owner's Box, wherever you happen to be playing today. Get those lineups in. The last thing you want to do is put yourself in a position to be playing nothing but dummy lineups on a Christmas day. Any final thoughts, Greg, before you and I dip out of here and we turn this one over to the NFL Live Before Lock show?
No, just checking my lineups, making sure everything looks good, which they are. Nothing massively surprising. Nothing that I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this showed up in my lineups. Still very, very heavily exposed to the Denver Nuggets as of right now. So I'll be prepared for any kind of late swapping there. And then also, hopefully, Evan Mobley is able to be competent today.
On the nose, we are locked. Reminder, the promo code is GIFT. You can use this promo code on any package whatsoever at Stochastic. Whatever tickles your fancy, this code will work. 20% off anything on the DFS side. Come on and join us. Greg, anything else before we turn this one over?
No, I'm just really excited to check the ownership on Evan Mobley in the main contest on FanDuel.
We'll stay until you grab it if you're pulling it up right now, and then we'll get out of here.
Oh my God, 68%. That is crazy low. I mean, like, I know that sounds insane to say, but relative to a guy who had projected for 99% ownership, that's crazy.
Hope you have your Evan Mobley on FanDuel. Enjoy Eric and Eric in the afternoon for NFL Live Before Lock. Good luck, everybody. Happy holidays.
I like how you said them.